It's my honor to introduce Congressman Don Beyer. He is the representative for Virginia's 8th District. He holds what I think is a unique distinction in that he served back-to-back terms as lieutenant governor, one under a Democrat and one under a Republican. President Obama had appointed him as the ambassador to Switzerland and Liechtenstein, and he successfully lobbied the Swiss to accept some of the first cleared prisoners from Guantanamo Bay. His district has one of the highest concentration of Muslim Americans in the Mid-Atlantic region, and he's a leader in engagement in our community. He also has the unique distinction as a freshman congressman of employing 2 American Muslim staff in his office. Within his first year, he introduced a resolution condemning anti-Muslim bigotry. Quote, "This is a critical benchmark to show our colleagues and the American people that we do not stand for religious bigotry. Hateful words and actions directed at Muslim Americans run contrary to our values as a fair, just, and inclusive society." In response to those who had proposed bans on Muslims to come by immigration or refugees, the representative recently introduced a bill which would prohibit the denial of entry to immigrants to the U.S. based on religion or non-religion. Those of you that are here and on the Hill know that there was actually a press conference this afternoon, about it. He has been very active in outreach to the American Muslims within his district. He visited a mosque, gasp, and spoke to constituents, Muslim constituents, about what their concerns are. Congressman, we understand the political risk that you take by speaking and acting in a way that shows support for the American Muslim community. We really appreciate what you do, and I know that this is insufficient, but please accept the award tonight as a small token of appreciation for all that you have done and continue to do. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Congressman Don Beyer.
Good evening. Assalamu alaikum. I want to thank MPAC so much for inviting me to be part of this tonight, and I'm very honored and humbled by the award. Thank you very much. And it was wonderful to listen to Muna. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for your spirited description of why you chose to join the MPAC board and in your leadership. So I'm very impressed and very thrilled. And I do have the great honor to represent Northern Virginia, which is a great, wonderful place. It's so good in so many ways. I mean, I always say that America was born on a farm in Virginia. But I have the Pentagon, Fort Belvoir, the burial ground of John Kennedy, Old Town. It's perhaps the most educated congressional district in the country, one of the wealthiest, a significant plurality of Muslim Americans, and I can drive home every night, which is really wonderful. And I'm so happy to be here with you to share the perspective. And it was very helpful for me to listen to Muna talking about soccer practice and soccer shoes and hockey practice and Five Guys, which sounds exactly like the household that I raised for many years. Surprise. She mentioned briefly that my office has been about work of trying to recognize the real contribution of Muslim Americans. She mentioned Adnan Mohammed, who's been my legislative correspondent, and Sophia Khan, who's my scheduler, the most important job in any congressional office. They're both here tonight. And Adnan, by the way, answered 100,000 constituent emails last year, which we think was the most of any congressional office. And in every case, he tried to do it substantively, not one of those letters that said, "Thank you for your ideas, love," He tried to actually tell them what was happening on Capitol Hill and what our position was. And while I'm proud of Adnan and Sophia, I'm equally proud of Kate and Zach and Tommy and Aaron, the Catholics and Jews and people of no particular religious faith in that office who've all worked together and cared deeply about our resolution condemning the hate language and Muslim bigotry and proclaiming the freedom of religion, especially when it comes to immigration. It was thrilling today to be on the stage in the auditorium with Andre Carson, with Jan Schakowsky and Joe Crowley and other great people. But we were also surrounded by, must have been 40 or 50 people. And I think 4 or 5 of them were Muslim, but they were from the Friends group, from the Jewish Ben the Ark group. There were rabbis. There were a bunch of Catholics. There were people who cared deeply about religious freedom in this country, and people who were just determined to say no to the Donald Trumps of the world, to the people who would divide us, who would put us in a box because of our faith, who would somehow characterize craziness that happens in a Paris or a Brussels and use it to characterize more than 1 billion people around the world. We all Americans have to come together to do this. And every time somebody says something nice about me, I feel incredibly embarrassed because I am the smallest part of this cog. And I think if ever we have the opportunity, to do the right thing, to do the moral thing and to step forward, then, God demands that we do it. And never try to take credit for it, even if they give me a really nice award. So thank you so much for welcoming me into the community. Muna mentioned that right after Paris attacks, and then a few days after the San Bernardino attack, we invited every member of Congress who was going home to go to their local mosque and show solidarity with the Muslim community. And Betty McCollum from St. Paul and Eleanor Holmes Norton came to Darul Hijra with me. And others like Mike Hahn and Joe Crowley went to their synagogues or their mosques. And it brought me to tears how many people that were there that were just so grateful that somebody was saying something nice and positive about their contribution rather than tearing them down. But the story goes on, because I talked to the Imam Jabari today in the Capitol about what started things off at Darul Hijra. It was a young man had thrown a Molotov cocktail into the mosque parking lot attempting to burn the building down. And he was caught a couple days later and is now in jail waiting trial. Well, in something that I know our God that we all love and worship would approve of, the Imam and his people went out and researched this young man who threw the Molotov cocktail, discovered that he'd been living homeless in the neighborhood, sleeping on park benches. They've engaged with his mother about first of all, how to educate his family, and concerned about what happens to him when ultimately he serves a sentence and gets out of jail. That notion of forgiveness and of understanding that we want every American to bring to all Americans, and especially to our Muslim brotherhood. Sometimes, I take credit for the fact that the president went to the mosque in Baltimore. No, just kidding. But sometimes we do little things and it has ripple effects that we can never imagine. And I will, with my wonderful people, with your inspiration, I will keep trying to do the little things that move us in the right direction, that bring us all together, that banish fear and elevate hope. Thank you very much.